Okay, good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 8th meeting of the St. Mary's County Planning Commission. Our meeting is being recorded this evening for the public record. Any comments made by anyone present must be recorded as part of the record, and also anybody that's coming in through WebEx. Therefore, if you have anything to say, you must come up to one of the microphones provided, or when giving testimony online or on telephone, please give us your name followed by your statement. Your comments cannot be recorded and placed in the record unless they are done in this fashion. You are to direct your statements, questions, or responses to the board only, and we will direct them to the appropriate person for an answer. Please keep any of your comments to 5 minutes or less, though this is no any public meetings tonight, public hearings. Anyone testifying or asking questions during our public hearing will be required to take an oath, and we thank you for your cooperation. Please silence your cell phones. On our agenda this evening, I believe we have 3 items. After the review and approval of minutes for March, what minutes those are. Not the way March, for the February 22nd meeting. Our first discussion of the evening will be the 2022 capital improvement budget requests. Following that will be another discussion with the St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission for their 2022 CIP. Following that, and the last one for the evening will be for the Wildwood Plan Unit Development Annual Update. At this time, I'll let the board members introduce themselves, starting Ms. Roebuck.
Patty Roebuck.
Howard Thompson.
Joe Van Kirk.
Merle Evans.
And also with us this evening, we have on WebEx, Mr. Joe Fazekas, Kim Summers, and Joe St. Clair. Mr. Hall will not be with us tonight, and we have some get well wishes for him. Also with us from the county, big list tonight. From Land Use and Growth Management, the director, Mr. Bill Hunt, is with us. Planner is Brandy Glenn, and Courtney Jenkins is with us on WebEx. Our video media producer is Amy Carter. From the County Attorney's Office is David Weiskopf. From the Department of Public Works and Transportation, we have the director, Mr. John Dietrich, and the deputy director, Mr. Donnie Mills. From St. Mary's Metropolitan Commission, we have the director, Mr. George Erickson, and we also have Christy Hollander with us. From the Finance Department, Mr. Jeanette Cudmore is here. From Recreation and Parks, or Parks and Recreation, Mr. Arthur Shepard. From St. Mary's County School System is Dr. Jeff Walker and Kim Howe. And I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody. I think I'm caught up, and if I miss somebody, I apologize. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes? And if so, are there any corrections or deletions? And this for the February 22nd meeting? If not, I'll accept a motion to, I'd like a motion to accept those.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the Planning Commission meeting, February 22nd, 2021.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second.
I second.
Okay. Okay. I'll go down. I'll take roll call for the approval. Patty Roebuck. Joe Van Kirk.
Yay.
Merle Evans.
Yay.
Joe Fazekas.
Aye.
Kim Summers.
Aye.
Mr. St. Clair.
Same.
Oh, thank you, Joe. And I'll vote for that. They are approved. Okay. Moving right along. Okay, our first discussion this evening will be for fiscal year 2022 for the capital improvement budget request. Ms. Cudmore, welcome back.
Oh,
Haven't seen you in.
the Director John Dietrich,
Okay.
in case you have any questions.
Okay.
Take this mask off. Well, we're on our way, starting on the FY22 budget, and we're making progress. And so I'm sure you received our package with all the project sheets. We have the agenda, all the table of contents. We have on page 1, we have our budget book format for you by project type. And then on page 2, you can see that ends up with the public schools, and you can see that we have capital summary by project type and also the funding. So this year for FY22, the amount is $54,747,785. And actually, based on the plan that was approved in the FY 2021 budget for FY 22, we're actually less, a reduction of $24.4 million. And of course, that kind of makes me happy because it's easier to identify funding when the projects go lower. And then overall, for the plan from 22 through 26, it's only an increase of $749,000 for those years. And of course, we have the new layer in FY 2027, which is for $24.7 million. On page 3 is our debt capacity, and I'm pleased to say, with including the debt of Metcom in their plan, we are well within our affordability measures. So the highest year that we have for our outstanding debt as a percent of our base, our assessable base, is in FY 2026, and that's at 2.13, and we can go to 2.15 currently. And then also we have our other measurement, which is at the bottom, our debt service as a percent of our revenues. Our highest year is 5.86%, and the commissioner's policy is to be below 10%. So again, we're well within and maintaining. We are planning a bond sale this spring, and we're working on that right now. So we plan to close on $30 million May 25th. So we take the resolution for approval to the commissioners next Tuesday. And then we get into our CIP sheets, and we actually only have 3 new projects since you saw this last year. The radio systems upgrades, that's like for $350,000 for consulates within the building of emergency communications. And then we have 2 studies in here. They're actually both for the Board of Education, and they're in Dr. James Forrest study for $25,000, and then the Leonardtown High School study pre-designed for $75,000. So if you have any questions on any of these projects, we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions you want to?
This is Joe Fazekas,
Okay.
and I tagged a few of the projects. It's not really specific questions about the projects. I think it's more from my understanding of how the capital improvement program works. The first page that I tagged was page 5, which was the FDR Boulevard project. And this is just an example. There are others throughout the report here. When we only see funding going up to FY 2023 or a different year, is that then the assumption the project is done and not funded beyond that, or is next year's budget going to show additional funding in subsequent years?
Right. That is actually the last year that we're planning to fund this project, and we're hoping that it is completed in that year or shortly thereafter, once the funding is in place in FY 2023.
That is very nice news to hear.
Yes.
But for other projects like that, if the funding stops on a certain fiscal year, that means that's when the project's intended to be complete.
Pretty much, or actually we get that funding in FY 2023 for FDR. So we have that whole year. We still have to spend it. So that's when the budget the final year budget is in that year. And then it probably will be finished up hopefully in the next year or so after that. But shortly thereafter,
Okay, great.
hopefully, is our plan.
All right, great. The second one I tagged was page 7. This was about sidewalk improvement program. And I'm just questioning more so, and this is for personal reasons, where's the project start? Like, who would I go to if there's something in my community that I wanted to address that would be on a county road?
Just send me an email, and that will get the project rolling. So just
Thanks, John.
john.dietrich stmarysmd.com. Yeah, I'd be glad to
Great,
look
thank
at it.
you.
I have a question on the same page. That's right. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I just one or two more. Page 9. This was one about side paths or bikeways, and it basically talks about a Maryland Bikeways grant, and it said the grant was not awarded to us last summer. Was that because of lack of a project that qualified? Was it a lack of funds at the state level? I was just curious about that in general.
Well, there is not much in the new state budget, so most of those grants were cut, but we also didn't compete well enough, I guess, with this. But part of the problem is that the Wildwood Parkway, MD4, St. Andrews Church Road improvement that the state was moving ahead with, they stopped that. They pulled the plug on the construction funding for it. That was supposed to extend the left turn lane into Wildwood Boulevard from, call it eastbound, St. Andrews Church Road. And they stopped that, so that, in effect, made it more difficult for us to get the side path going. But we're carrying that project forward in our transportation plan update, and we're going to push for that because it's a good connection. A lot of people go biking past there, and I even see buggies, so it's pretty dangerous.
And we were able to identify county funds to keep that project moving forward until grant funds can become available.
Right.
So that entry, they're still going to work on that
Yes.
entryway?
Yes.
And then the last one is more general. A number of projects talk about a cost sharing between the state and the county. And for example, one mentioned for every dollar that the county puts in, the state would match $1.50. So when we look at numbers in the tables below on those projects, we're budgeting X amount of dollars. That doesn't necessarily mean that the state's going to have the funds to match that. Is that correct?
Which project are you looking at?
I had a bunch of them, but any ones where it was a state versus and county cost sharing.
Right. And that's usually
Whether it was grant-based.
the agricultural land preservation program. They normally have for every dollar we put up, they actually match it. And we haven't had a problem when we've budgeted for this. This is part of a program they have, so they let us know that if the funds are not available or if they've been reduced. But we haven't had any issues with them funding in the year that the funding's needed.
Okay, that's good to hear. That's all I had today. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Go ahead,
Mr.
Bill.
Bank.
You have one.
Back to page 7, if we could, just a couple of things. Projects that come forward to the Planning Commission, whoever they are, one of the things that we require on most all projects are sidewalks.
Right.
The county is replete with sidewalks everywhere that are put there because the Planning Commission has put them there or because applicants have agreed to put them there. So, I having been here for a time, I look at vacancies between developments to development, and then it's empty, which is, I guess, is where this comes into play. And typically, I was told at one point not to talk about specific roads, but you talked about specific roads, so let me talk about this specific road, because I go by it every day. Mm-hmm. So when Chancellor's Run, 237, was rebuilt, mm-hmm. The road off of Chancellor's Run, which is Buck Hewitt Road, has sidewalks sort of helter-skelter all up and down the road. And there's one section, it's about maybe 300 yards. But along the way, all these developments are required to build roads. And I go by there every day, and I watch people walk in the ditches, or they're walking on the roads. And I understand this is just one place in the county.
Right.
And that this is not a critique of you or anybody else. But I guess what I'm saying is that if we as a county are going to acknowledge that we want village and town centers, and we want development districts, and we want them walkable,
Right.
Right.
we are just going to have to somehow, and I know this is difficult because everybody wants what everybody wants, we're going to have to do a better job at making them walkable. In this case, this is a development district, and if this section were in place, there's sections here and there from CVS all the way to 237, you would actually be able to navigate the whole, that whole area, which is probably 3.5, 4 miles, something like that.
Right. That would be nice.
And I'm not
right.
saying that this is any more important than anything else, but in this case, where the sidewalk ends, where the development ends,
Right.
you step off into a gully.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a ways. And so, and I see that there's some money here that's, that we will hopefully spend, and the reality of it is you have about 10% of what you need. So-
John, is there a plan to connect?
Yeah, so the way we would like to pursue that is where we've got an RFP out that's going to go to our consultants shortly to update our 2006 transportation plan. And part of the RFP is tracking all of the existing sidewalks and finding out where the gaps are so that we can really develop a meaningful budget to kind of gradually work through that and get, start with the ones that have the most pedestrians and then, work our way through
Sure.
the
Well,
list.
I know for years, ever since this intersection was constructed, they've been concerned about the intersection. And there was always this notion that the intersection was going to get realigned. And we were going to use some funds from the state. Well, we send money to the state, it doesn't come back very well. It goes to the northern part of the state. So I look at that intersection every time I go by there, and I see it's all, it's kind of squirrels around, and that's just one little thing. But in a broader sense, I guess, I'm back to this development districts, priority
Right.
funding areas, and the
Right.
rest of those things.
Right.
And you're just one piece of it. There's water and sewer, roads, and all the rest. So one thing, since I don't mean to beat you up, but let me say this, the 311 works extremely well. I've used it any number of times, and Mr. Tarr has been reacts very well to reaching out and trying to address these things that I've personally done. I've never had any issue with them at all.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll pass that on.
yeah, that program works, for me, my experience is that it works really well. So that's what I have.
So Chancellor's Run, and what was Crossroad again, please?
Chancellors and Buck Redmond, Buck Hewitt, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Too
Buck
many Bucks.
Hewitt.
Yeah, Buck Hewitt, and across the way, it's Norris Road.
Norris Road.
And so you
Yeah,
have,
so Buck Hewitt is, I hope, by the end of this calendar year, we're going to have sidewalks on Buck Hewitt where we currently don't.
yeah, and down the line, I think that, it's sort of surprising how much that road is actually used. We have movements in the county, north and south, too, but east and west movements are really helpful. And this is a really well-used east-west movement. When I was there today, I was there probably 10 or 15 minutes. My mom lives right around the corner. And there were probably 50 or 60 cars that went there in a matter of 10 minutes or so. And it wasn't rush hour. It was in the middle of the day.
Right.
And the other part that happens is that the traffic there will queue up because there's no place for it to go. The road is very narrow, and right there on the corner, there's any series of telephone poles that are precariously sitting sideways.
Right.
But it is what it is. And so I just bring it up, not to gripe, but this is just an opportunity to look at a particular place. And people out there can probably come up with any number of places that are no fault of yours, but in fact exist. So.
Right.
Well, we got to fix them, though, or they are our fault. So, we need a plan, and then we need to work through it. And that's what we'd like to do this year.
Yeah, well, as I say, I mean, his response to my issues where I live and other places where I don't live, that I actually happen to see something, and I would just go into 311, and the response actually was really, really terrific. They did a nice job.
Good, thanks.
Sure.
Mr. Vankirk?
I have a quick one. I'm not sure if it's for Mr. Dietrich or for Mr. Shepherd. It's on page 40. Snow Hill Park.
Oh, that is a Mr. Shepherd question.
Right.
My basic question is, I see what it, hello, Mr. Shepherd.
Hey,
I see what it says in here. Master plan was requested in 2020, designed in 2021, and construction for 2022 and 2023. What's happening with that? And the second half of that question is, are individual projects within Snow Hill, I understand everything couldn't be done at one time, are individual things more of a priority than other things? And the reason I ask you that is because the local boat ramp for north of Hollywood closed up, no fault of the county, and we have nothing above Clark's Landing. We have Forest Landing, but it's about 10 parking places there. And
Or less.
when they built Clark's Landing public boat ramp, I've been there about 15 times over the last couple summers, and I've never been able to put my boat over there yet because you don't have nowhere to park your boat, your truck and trailer. They got 6 spaces, but with the size of trucks and trailers now, you can fit 4. So I was really wondering about the boat ramp at Snow Hill. Among other things are important also. What's the status of that?
good questions. I hear that a lot about the loss of the boat ramp, the leased boat ramp, and what's going on at Clark's Hill and Clark's Landing. Okay, Snow Hill, we just awarded the master plan to the contractor, to a design firm, A. Morton Thomas. We're going to soon give them the notice to proceed because we're having some subsequent meetings. Then what's in that list is that, and you can see it in our text and the way we solicited out, was that the dual boat ramp is a top priority. We want to get that master plan in and the bid work out on that even before it's all complete. We want to get there soon because the commissioners and we all are well aware of what's on that above Hollywood as far as access to the Patuxent. So that's a big one. And I think with the solicitation going out, we're going to get moving on it. Hopefully that this month of March, 1st of April, to begin the notice to proceed.
So is there a chance that boat ramp would be installed and usable this summer, or probably looking for next year?
No, next year, because time you get all that permitting, it's going to be done. There's still work to be done. We're going to put a very nice one there, and hopefully it's a dual boat ramp with dredge work done, the permitting process. We have already been in contact with waterway improvement that we have we're going to have a 50-50 grant there at that project, a matching grant. So if we have a boat ramp of, let's say, $800,000, the state's going to pay for $400,000. So we're pretty excited about that, but it's going to take more than this summer, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Hate to be disappointed, but it won't be this summer.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, but thank you very much.
Patty, you have any questions? Ms. Summers, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Okay. Mr. St. Clair?
Okay, you saw me buzz in, didn't you?
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. How about the St. Patrick's Creek maintenance dredge? Who does that come under? Does that come under Public Works?
Yes.
Yep, yes, Public Works. And we definitely had a stroke of luck on that project. It looks like the Corps did find some money for us, and we also have a location where to put the dredge material. There's still some final testing to be done to make sure it's not contaminated, but it's going to go to Newtown Neck, along Newtown, the state property there. They want to do some beach replenishment. So don't have a time frame yet, but looks like we've got money and a place to put the dredge materials, so it's looking positive.
So are we still looking at 2022 to start it, or, I mean,
That's probably the case because it's going to take them a while to get the testing done on the material, the chemical testing. It's the right kind of sand, right material, but they just have to make
Right.
sure there isn't any hazardous material in it.
excellent to build the beachhead up over there on Newtown next side. Plus, I just bought a new boat, so I'd like to be able to get out of that creek. I think it's now down to 8 foot wide.
Yeah, yeah. There's
So,
been a lot
next
of
question.
additional deposition of silt and so forth with after the tropical storm and everywhere. And we definitely have to move forward with that.
I guess the next question is for Mr. Shepherd. Mr. Shepherd, how are you this evening?
Excellent,
you know,
thank you, Mr. Jeff.
Doing good, sir. My other little pet is the St. Clements Island Museum renovation. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, that's a good one. We were with the museum trustees this morning, and we think now with our on-call consultant design firm that that we're ready to move forward with the award. Possibly the scope of the work is being agreed upon. We're looking at, and we put in this year the $170,000 coming up for additional design work. We'll transfer some funds because we want to get initiated now. It's time to move forward for the design work for that 2-story building there. But JMT, it looks like it's going to be awarded, and so now the design work takes a while, then it'll be construction coming. But we're moving forward, Mr. Sinclair. Positive.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Evans?
I don't have anything else until we get to MedCom.
Okay. Mr. Evans?
Yeah, I have two other just small. One is really just more of a concern. I don't think it has much to do with what county can do about it. But the first question is, back when we had the radio system upgrades were being done, there were dead spots and that sort of thing. Have pretty much all those been taken care of, Jeanette? Do you know?
I believe
We
that
had any
they're getting close to it. They've been really working towards that.
Okay, so let me move beyond the county's issue with dead spots.
Okay.
My mother uses Philips Lifeline. It's important. She wants to live by herself. She has this thing around her neck. It's really important to have connectivity.
Sure.
She lives almost under a Verizon tower and can get 3G. The new requirement for Philips is 4.
Wow.
I got new equipment, and it wouldn't connect. Verizon, it's always been an issue with me. Where I live in Tall Timbers, I get to stand on my front porch, raise my right leg, and get a signal. I mean, it's pretty absurd when it comes to some of this stuff, especially since they generate a fair amount of revenue. There's really no excuse in this. And so this has become much more of an issue for me
Right.
because of her situation.
Right. Sure.
She will not be able to connect. They gave her until January. After January, Philips Lifeline won't be able to connect to her devices.
Wow. Okay.
So just as a matter of just a hello to Verizon wherever you are.
Sure.
Because where I live, when I rebuilt my home, everything was all hardwired. I literally had to abandon all of it because there are no hardwires that work in my community at all, and it's all very problematic when it comes to cell service. So that's just that. The other thing that I had was just really a question with regard to this is where is this? Page 32, I think. It has to do with the regional meat processing facility.
Right.
Yes.
The North County Farmers Market. Are we, with regard to the market, are we okay with the funding on the market? Are we pretty much?
Yes, North Farm Market's fully funded. It's under contract for construction. We should see some activity out there in a couple weeks. And so there's both they call it the value-added building, where people will be able to sell jams and jellies, and once the rack is completed, they'll sell cut meats, wrapped cut meats there. But that's all to go. And the market sheds for the Amish vendors and people that, might come in a pickup truck, that's also under contract there. And we hope that all of that will be open in September, October.
And a follow-up to that, with regard to the slaughterhouse part of that, I read where there's some issue with perhaps some issue with the funding, some of the funding. I guess it comes from the state of Maryland to SMATIC.
Right.
And SMATIC has been under some pressure over recent years, trying to find that funding. Two parts. If the state doesn't come forward with the money, what do we do? Is there a plan B?
So is this the rack project you're talking about?
Well,
yeah. So right now we've got an RFP out for design for a consultant to design the facility within the existing budget we've got, which is $2.7 million.
Right.
And we think it can be done for that. But we also need to have, it has to pass USDA and all of that.
Right.
So, and SMATIC had a great success last week with the Amish slaughtering facility actually got their USDA stamp and their inspector and all that. You may already know that.
Yeah, so they can move forward.
Yep. So that's so now we definitely want to get, and SMATIC is arranged for places to temporarily take care of the cutting up of the carcasses.
And that's what I was getting to. What are we going to do in the interim?
Right.
So, and I guess over the years, you look at monies that are to flow in, and as long as they flow in,
Right.
you're good to go.
Right.
When they don't flow in, or the grant has an end that comes to it, are we prepared? And the county's done a good job with that. I know I can sit here and say, look, if it's not going to be reoccurring and you don't have a way of funding it,
Right.
I'm not so sure it's smart to take to begin with. And so, and that has always been a concern of mine, whether or not this facility is going to be able to cover its expenses.
As far as we've heard, we have not heard any problems with the existing funding in this project.
Okay.
I think I also read the same article, in the paper, and I think it was purely roughly on their operating side.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Right.
Yeah. I'm
And
not
we
surprised.
haven't heard any impact.
Yeah, I don't think
at
the
all at this
construction
point.
side is going to, they'll find the money.
Right.
My concern is, will the lights come on? Can you operate it? Will it be able to be operational, and how much of a struggle will that be?
Right. Right.
Okay.
So we'll keep an eye on it.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
this one question for one of my favorite ladies, Miss Kim Howe. Kim, with the COVID situation the way that it is, the monies that are coming to the school systems for upgrade, I see a lot of HVAC system renovations going on. Will any of these be for air purification for our kids as this goes forward?
So,
Take care of it, COVID?
so we're already meeting the requirements through our Department of Maintenance. They've already made adjustments to our system. So the projects that we have do upgrade. They're new systems. So the projects that we have do upgrade HVAC systems, but in terms of COVID, we are already working on those processes as we move forward.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that, and the community needed to hear that as well.
One more piece. The Board of Education always provides us with a number that has to do with the average age of their infrastructure, their buildings. We get that number. I'm wondering, does the county, do we look at infrastructure with regard to roadways, and I'm sure water and sewer does, with regard to where we are on average? Do we do that?
We've got a roadway inventory system.
Right.
Quite a bit of that information is actually on the web. We're working to get even more. We've got, like our culverts and so forth. We're getting that updated. So, yeah, I've always admired the board's booklet they put out each year with the plan, and we're moving in that direction at
Okay,
DPW
yeah, I
and
mean-
T also.
It's sort of helpful, when you look and say, well, we've done, in comparison, I hate to
Right.
compare us to other counties, but we actually do fairly well.
Yeah,
You know,
we do.
so-
Right.
And it is a very nice document. Kim does a great job.
She
in his
does,
staff.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, she does. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Shepherd, you know you weren't going to get by me this evening without me saying something to you.
I'm with you, Chair.
There you go. There you go. I'm just looking out into the future land. The Three Notch Trail up Hollywood North. How are you coming
Okay.
on land requisition, and is everything meshing, coming together for that?
Let me talk about where we are now at the water tower there in Hollywood, and we're going to the Sturbridge Apartments there right next door to Harris Teeter. We're doing very well on our easements and everything that's needed there, the right-of-ways there, and we hope to get the SHA here soon. We're right at 100% design. Then I think the next one's going to be working with Donnie Mills there in DPW, and some of the ways we're already talking about how we connect from there, the FDR that's there, the store frontage in front of Best Buy and places like that, to make that connection until we get around Walmart, because, from Chancellor's Run Road into Gate 1 of the base Peg Road, that's part of the FDR project. So I've just explained to you, let's walk back from Peg Road. We're good there. That's an FDR project with Public Works. Then from that store frontage area, Walmart to the Sturbridge Apartments at Harris Teeter, we have to work out. Then let's keep walking north. We're doing good. We're 95, 100% design, going to SHA for Phase 7. That leaves us 8 and 9 between Hollywood Road and getting up to Friendship School Road, and then from Friendship School Road to Baggett Park, that'll be full connection. I'd say we're in pretty good shape with our easements and all design work. You're still going to be 10 years out to getting all that. Good news is we're doing concurrent with FDR from Chancellor's to Peg Road. That DPW is on that we're on our end. But everything's flowing pretty good there, Chair, Mr. Thompson. It's looking good. This one here is taking a little bit long, though, getting storm water off. We had a redesign because we were on the SMECO right away regarding the major wetlands with boardwalks and bridges. But we've gotten through all that, and hopefully we can get some good movement with SHA soon, so we can start some construction here within the next year. That's a long answer, huh?
Yes, sir. And I'm like Mr. Van Kirk, too. We need that boat ramp up there in Hollywood. There's a lot of people.
I understand my Hollywood friends. I understand.
You're jamming us up there, you have to get to Clark's Landing before the sun even thinks about coming up, before you can, same thing down.
But that renovation turned out very well, and I'm glad it's very popular, so that's the good news about it.
Yeah, and Forest Landing is the same way. When you get down the bottom of the hill, then you find out you don't have no parking spot. It's you better know how to pull that trailer back around. So.
Yeah.
That's about all.
Correct.
That's about all I can rake you over the coals for, unless you got anything new on Snow Hill Park, besides the boat ramps and such.
No, that master plan's coming. Very excited about the master plan and the possibilities there. That piece of property has a lot to offer, so I'm excited about engaging in that master plan process here soon.
Okay.
Mr. Shepherd, you ought to be very excited. You have a lot of money in this budget.
Yes, we do. We're very excited in Recreation and Parks.
That's good.
It wasn't always that way.
No, that's
right.
I'm glad to see Parks and Recs have a substantial budget. Good for you. I hope it all
Thank you, Mr.
moves
Evans.
along swimmingly.
Yes, sir.
Funny.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd. I look forward to speaking with you in the future.
Appreciate that.
Mr. Dietrich, about the Southampton project, reading the description of the project, they're following in on after they working on Patuxent Homes, Patuxent Park project, and they're kind of modeling it off of that.
Correct.
How is Patuxent Park going? I know it's a slow and laborious project in there. And two, did you learn anything in there that's going to help you when you come into Southampton?
Yeah, have contingency money to take care of utilities that end up being somewhere other than where they're supposed
right.
to be. But no, just working with the people, with the residents, probably is one of the hardest parts because a lot of people, want to park on the street and that kind of thing. So but we'll get through it. I think a big lesson we learned was we got to do better temporary repairs temporary restorations as we go along so that people don't lose their shocks and their front end alignment, while we're helping them with the project. So we need to provide a better roadway surface during the course of the project because these are dense neighborhoods and people still got to live there and still got to drive there. So I'd say we learned quite a bit from the Patuxent Park project that we're transferring into that.
Because I know a lot of those homes were designed that didn't even have driveways. Is there like ways you can, when you're working on sidewalks, you can put temporary, I'll say, like millings or something for them to park off of the street that would help you, when you get to this next project, give homeowners somewhere else to park beside the street and.
That's an interesting idea, and I'll talk to Alan Settle about that, and Don, who's on the call. He's on the screen up there somewhere. He's heard it. He's heard your suggestion too. So
Because that's something
interesting
that
idea.
can be taken back up after you finish, say, one street and move it to the next
Right.
one.
We just got to make sure that they let us take the temporary parking out of there when we get the street back in.
Get it on paper, get a signature. But
Right.
it'll help you, but it'll help them also.
Correct.
The main part's helping you because the faster you can get through your project, the faster they'll get their street back. Okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Well then, if I could get a motion from one of our board members, we'll move this forward. And we have a sample motion that's before us.
I'll give it to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Here in TV land, you want me to make it?
I can do it, or he can do it. I don't care.
Go ahead, Mr. St. Clair.
There you go.
Okay, I move that the Planning Commission accept the FY 2022 through FY 2027 St. Mary's County. Oh, no, that's the Metropolitan one. Go ahead. I got the wrong one.
All right, Mr. Evans, batter up.
Mr. Evans, TV land just went off.
I'm going to make sure I've got the right one. Sample motion for the Planning Commission to accept the FY 2022-27 that we're looking for?
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought?
No, that's
Okay.
Metropolitan
That's
Commission.
Metcom.
Yep.
You
we
can
got
use
the
that,
other
just insert different words, probably.
I'm in no
It's the
better
same.
shape than
I don't
anybody
feel
else is.
bad now.
If you got your laptop in front of you, you can go to the sample motion on the board docs. Am I allowed to make a motion? I haven't done that in a long time. I didn't think so. I gave it a try, Mr. Weisskopf, Does anybody have it up on board docs in front of them?
Do not.
Both my motions that it came in the package are the same.
Okay. We'll wait a second. You can pop it up on here. Go to board docs and it's your second click here.
I got it.
Okay, here we go. We got a winner here.
Yeah, I got it now. He hesitated.
Go ahead.
No. I've already had my shot.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission accept the FY 2022 to 27 St. Mary's County Capital Improvement Budget and Plan as being consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that the chair be authorized to sign a letter to the Commissioners of St. Mary's County confirming these findings and recommending approval.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a second for Ms. Roebuck. Okay, I'll do the roll call. Ms. Roebuck,
Aye.
Joe Van Kirk,
Aye.
Merle Evans,
Aye.
Joe Fazekas,
Aye.
okay, Kim Summers,
Aye.
Joe St. Clair,
Aye.
and I also vote for that. Thank you all for your presentation. Didn't get to talk too much to all of you, but that means that everything's going well and the jobs are well done.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you all. You
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you. Brilliant.
Good job.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, Mr. Shepherd.
I have two packages, and they're both got the same motion on
Yeah,
them.
all mine had was in
Okay,
it.
moving right along.
Yeah,
Our next
I have them separated.
Next part this evening is for St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission for the fiscal year 2022 CIP and MECCOM fiscal year 2022 CIB. We have Mr. George Erickson with us this evening that's going to answer all of these questions, and Ms. Hollander is also here with us on WebEx.
That's fine.
We have Christy Hollander, our chief engineer, and also Patty Stigman, in case there's any specific funding questions that you might have. She
Didn't see
has
her.
also called in on WebEx
Thank you. I didn't see
to assist today. Good evening, Chairman Thompson and Planning Commission members. It's been a while since we spoke with you last. I think it was March 9th last year, so a year has already gone by. On January 9th and February 13th, our Metropolitan Commission Board reviewed our capital budget and presented what you have in your packages today and authorized us to move that forward. I want to thank Jeanette Cudmore, the county CFO, for including the CIB that you have before you into the county's combined debt. You know there's a debt capacity limit that's confined by law, and we're well within those limits with the current CIB, so funding and affordability should not be an issue with the CIB. We're here tonight because the law, the Code of St. Mary's County, actually requires us to have our annual capital budget approved by the Commissioners of St. Mary's County, who cannot approve the capital budget unless there's a recommendation from the Planning Commission that the budget is in conformance with the comprehensive plan. So it's a multi-step process, and that is why we are here tonight. In your packages, there's a memorandum dated February 22nd. It outlines what you have in your packages. Basically, the water section and the sewer section are two different components that we're submitting. The water section is divided into three different areas: water line projects, well projects, and water storage tank projects. And the sewer section contains detailed project summary sheets for sewer replacements, sewer pump stations, and sewer upgrades and expansions. Tonight, to try to make it a little bit easier to go through what we've done in our highlighted sections where you see summaries, we have water and sewer summary sheets. We presented everything you've seen on all of these projects pretty much last year, with the exceptions of the items in yellow. And the reason they're highlighted is because they're either new projects or changes to our capital improvement budget. Sometimes it's easy to lose projects in the shuffle, especially when there are so many. So we like to highlight those for our board, as well as the Planning Commission and the County Commissioners, so they can focus on changes. Those are the things that sometimes catch you by surprise. So if I could, on the water side, we had about $3.4 million in FY22 projects. That's about $5.9 million less than we had projected last year. And there's a reason for that. We had some project movement to the right. One project that we added was the SHA Maryland 5 widening. We added about $1 million worth of impacts to Metropolitan Commission, $500,000 on the water side, $500,000 on the sewer side. Howard Thompson, Mr. Van Kirk, Merle Evans, you know the county and SHA has been talking about widening that section of roadway between 246 and 471 for I don't know how many years. It looks like it's finally getting some momentum. The reason that we put $1 million in FY22 is that the state highway is in the process of doing what's called prior rights, where they look at all the impacts to all the utilities and they assign cost responsibility. If they were there first and you have to move your utilities, basically you're responsible for that cost. So they're in the process of sending out MOUs, getting commitments to that future expense. Well, it's pretty hard to commit in an MOU when you have no funding authority and you have no funding capacity. So we wanted to put $1 million, which we believe is more than sufficient, in our budget so that we had the fiscal authority to enter into an MOU. It's just part of the state process, and we would rather do that earlier rather than later. So that is one project. The last thing we wanted to do is be sitting here before you or the county commissioners with an unsigned MOU because we had no fiscal authority and we were the holdup on the project. So we wanted to do everything we could to keep that moving. You talked about the Southampton project and the lessons learned. I think John pretty much explained that in pretty good detail. We learned a lot about how to use the same contractor and how to not use the same contractor, and we found out it's probably a lot easier to go in together and use the same contractor, because when you're talking about utilities in the road right-of-way, is it the utility that's the failure or the road that's the failure? Is it the utility trenching that wasn't compacted, or is it the road bed that wasn't compacted? There's a lot of finger pointing that happens, and we made that mistake one time at Patuxent Park. We had a heck of a time billing, having the contractors split their bills up, so going with one contractor was a huge lesson learned. That also includes going with the same designer. You don't need that same responsibility going on at the design stage. So I think Southampton will be significantly smoother. The only challenge, I think John will agree, there's not a lot of right-of-way. I think it's only about 30 feet. So you've got to put sidewalk, curb and gutter, and utilities all in a really small confined space, and we're going to go through that process together. But that'll be a successful project. It was moved out 1 year, so the reason it's highlighted on our CIB sheets is just to reflect that the project was moved out 1 year. We did the same thing on Breton Bay Water System replacement. We moved that out 1 year based on the status of design. There's no point in chewing up debt capacity in any fiscal year when you're not in a position to use it or borrow the money. So if the design's not done, there's no point in forcing, or the design's not planned to be done in that time frame, to force your capital budget, which is the more expensive, the construction being the more expensive side in the capital budget. So we moved that out. Not a lot of movement on the water side. On the sewer side, there was significantly more. Again, we were about 5.9 million less than projected last year on the water side, but we were 6 million more on the sewer side. So the net impact to the 22 budget was basically zero. We added again the SHA Maryland 5 widening impacts. We have water and sewer. We fund those separately, so we, instead of putting $1 million in a single project, we have to show $500,000 on the sewer side, $500,000 on the water side. Again, we moved Southampton because there are sewer impacts there. We added, and I'd like to go into a little bit of detail, if I might, on the next two. We added Forest Run wastewater pumping station. I've had a couple of inquiries from a couple of Planning Commission members over the past few days. There were some issues down in Great Mills with water sewage backup, some backflow prevention issues, and the Metropolitan Commission, at its own expense, installed backflow prevention devices in those commercial businesses so the sewer would not back up. We have some issues down there because it's a low-lying area with infiltration into the sewer system from fresh water. So one of the projects we have, which will be completed probably within the next month, is relining all the sewers to keep the infiltration from getting in there unnecessarily. And, you know, we're a victim of our own success. Great Mills Wastewater Pumping Station, which feeds into this station, is a tremendous success, and it actually can overwhelm the existing Forest Run pump station. So the project there is intended to add the upgrade and the necessary pumps that we need to keep that sewage moving. So I think that should address some of the concerns that are down in that area. Also, we added the balance of funding for St. Clement Shores Wastewater Treatment Plant, Phase B. What we added is pretty interesting. We've gone through a long process on this project. It was, again, one of the best projects Daryl Calvano, former director of the Health Department, said he's seen in a long time. Between you, the Planning Commission, the County Commissioners, the Health Department, and even MDE chimed in on this project. I think we have a really successful one going forward. We added additional money in FY22 for a couple of reasons. One, we needed to put the balance of the construction money in. Primary reason we're adding additional monies is we plan to upgrade that to ENR, enhanced nutrient removal standards. It's a higher level of treatment than you would otherwise see in a treatment facility. It removes additional nitrogen and phosphorus. There's additional grant monies available to do that. So if the grant monies will cover your cost for that additional upgrade, there's a real good reason to go forward with doing those enhanced nutrient removal upgrades. What that means is that total nitrogen would be less than 3 milligrams per liter, and total phosphorus would be less than 0.3 milligrams per liter. It's just a much higher standard. The other small piece that you may not be aware of is on the operating budget side, no different than Marley Taylor. We are then eligible for $30,000 to $40,000 of operating budget funds to fund the additional chemicals and the additional treatment that would be required as far as ENR treatment goes. So we have done that. The other thing that's happened is that the county has gone through the arduous process, and Planning Commission, I know you were involved, of changing the comprehensive water and sewer plan and changing the comprehensive plan because St. Clement Shores was in a no plan service area for sewer. So there were no plans for expansion there at all. Main reason that we're doing this project is because there are failing septic systems in that area, and based on the high water table and the poorly draining soils, it appears that there will be a lot more failing systems in the future. A lot of the lots there are small, and they don't even have the room to put another system in should their current system fail. So it's a win-win for everybody, and we're looking forward to going forward with that project. We, however, did not wait for the comprehensive plan to be completed or the comprehensive water sewer plan to be completed. On, January 20th, we gave the notice to proceed to our consultant to start the first phase of the design process and to begin evaluating the costs. So we didn't wait, and it paid off. So it looks like this is going to be a well-received project going forward. As you're aware, we fund our projects on the fiscal side through system improvement charges and capital contribution charges, and part of the fiscal overview, and I know you may not be that interested in it, but the capital contribution charges will once again remain flat, and the system improvement charges that we anticipated last year are going to be lower this year than we predicted last year. So it's a win-win on the developer side of this as well. And for those who are listening in the general public, our rate of increase in our water and sewer bills are decreasing again by another 10% on both the water and sewer side. Again, this year, that's the third year in a row. So there'll be about a 30% reduction in our rates of increase over the past 3 years. We plan to do that for the next 2 as well, till we get to about a 1.5% to 2% increase per year, which seems to be the most reasonable thing to be able to sell to your customers. We couldn't keep it up at 4%, 3.5% and 4% in perpetuity. That's a pretty significant cost. So that's where we are on the charges and our rate side. On the growth side, because planning commissioners are interested in growth, we are seeing about 2% growth in customers per year. It's fairly consistent with, I think, what the county is seeing. We're seeing a lot more construction, but not necessarily the growth in terms of number of EDUs. We currently get about 80, we're predicting 87 water EDUs and about 144 sewer EDUs. And Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, we just hit our water EDU target this past month?
Right, that's correct.
So we're right on track with hitting our targets. What we do is we base our revenue on these predictions of development. And there's 2 ways to do it. You can create a budget and assume development is high, or you can use the history of what you've actually seen and make your budget fit into that history. And that's what we've been doing over the past 3 and 4 years, and it's proven to be very effective for us. We're not surprised anymore. We're happily surprised when we exceed our EDU numbers and our revenues are higher than projected as opposed to the other way around. And there may be some other questions. I'm just going to throw one out there. The Hickory Hills Water Tower, because we're starting to see a lot of movement on it. I'm just assuming that's going to be a question from somebody. Hickory Hills Water Tower, it's going to be the largest water tower in our inventory.
It's a big water tower.
It's 2 million gallons. The one next to it's only 500,000. The shape of it, I'd like to call the old school flashlights. Remember those? If you turn a flashlight up on his end, the container at the top looks like the head end of a flashlight.
Yeah.
If you've been on the Beltway 495, you've seen a water tower up on the left. It's going to look exactly like that. It's going to be extremely large. The shape of it, I guess there's a bunch of reasons for the shape. The shape is a little bit different than some of the other shapes. Basically, the shape that's chosen is based on the shape that provides the greatest amount of water emptying efficiency. That's the best way I can put it. So depending on how tall and how big it is, different shapes release water at different rates, and the shape that was chosen was the one that has the highest efficiency and also has the largest capacity. That should be completed in the spring of 2022. You'll probably see the bulk of what will look like the finished project before this calendar year is over. I like to say, when I say finished, I mean closed out in the spring, but you'll see a lot of movement on that over the summer and into this fall. It's going to be very, very evident that it's there. And we'd like to thank Nicoletti's and the owners down there for giving us the easements we needed to get into that site. They were very generous with their offer. So we'd like to thank them publicly. And if you have any specific questions on projects, Christie's here to answer. And again, any specific questions on funding, whether they be grants or how we fund our projects, Patty is certainly willing to chime in tonight.
Does anybody have any questions?
Just since you were talking about the Hickory Hills, I'm glad you brought that up. I just had a question, and I didn't see it in here. Is that in addition to the 500,000, or is that going to be replacing the 500,000?
The 500,000-gallon storage tank that's rusted.
Going to be taken down, or?
It's going to be removed and taken out of service. And to further answer your question, why it stayed in that condition, to paint the inside and outside of one of those towers, the existing one is about $250,000. It just didn't seem, as bad as it looked, just didn't seem appropriate if you're going to be replacing it within the next few years to spend that kind of money on repainting it. So we apologize to the citizens that they had to deal with that eyesore. We had some issues with land acquisition, which delayed us a little bit, but it's $250,000 not well spent.
Yeah.
And that tower will definitely go away. Yes, sir. It's a good question.
With the size of that new one going in, you don't even see the littler one now.
I can tell you that the storage tank, the container portion of it, the bottom of that will be where the top of the existing tower is. You're looking at a tower that's going to be between 150, 160 feet tall. Oh, you'll see it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you'll see it.
Mr. Evans?
Just a couple. I know some time back, it was brought to your attention, other attention, with regard to the perhaps entertaining NAS as being a customer of you guys. Has that ever been talked about any further and moved forward?
The RFP for privatizing utilities?
Right.
We, as a Metropolitan Commission, are not responding for several reasons. One of them is the RFP, you may not know, includes not only Pax River, it includes Webster Field. It also includes the annex over in Solomons, of which we have no jurisdiction. So it would be difficult to respond to that. That's my quick answer. The second one is the amount of improvements that will be required. It's just like a grant. Even if you have a 100% reimbursable grant, let's say, you still have to have the authority and the funding up front to spend it in order to get reimbursed. So even though Pax River would be willing to pay us for all the repairs, for all the operating impacts, you have to have the debt cap authority available.
Right.
And the county and Metcom combined have a debt ceiling that doesn't even allow that to happen. So that's answer number two. Number three, it's a lot of liability to take on considering the condition of the infrastructure. And we haven't had the ability to evaluate that to the fullest extent practical. So we are not in a position to respond to that at this time.
And you may not know, who constructed that already? I mean, why was it constructed that way? With regard to those, providing it for all those three locations.
Oh, the RFP?
Yeah.
Oh, well, The
That's a
Navy,
silly RFP.
the Navy
I'm
placed the
sorry.
RFP out. It's a nationwide initiative to privatize utilities, so
Well, I'm sure it is. Nobody wants to pay for anything. I mean, but that just is kind of silly. Anyway, moving on.
but that's not the primary reason. I'm sure it can be bifurcated into three
Oh,
separate.
I'm sure, yeah. I noticed that you have this Piney Point, Piney Point sewer line is due to be looked at, reconstructed sometime in the future. And I brought this up last year, and so I'll bring it up again. That sewer line was put in the ground by federal funds, and it has now reached the zenith of its ability, probably, which is why you guys are looking at it. When Metcom goes to replace that line, given it was a federal line, are you now the proud owners of the new line, or are you just fixing the line that belongs to the federal government?
We will look at that. It is our opinion that we are the proud owners of that line.
As it should be. And I guess what I said last year is if you're going to have to be responsible for the expense of that line, at very least, you'd reach out to the federal government and say, we have to replace it. So whatever value it is now, which is zero, would you just convey it, to the county, which I think would be the right thing to do. And now the county would have control of the line, and fortunately or unfortunately, they would be in the position of saying yes or no, as opposed to, what goes onto that line and when it goes on.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. We'll go back and look to see what kind of conveyance documentation there is. It was before my time, but it's certainly worth looking at. We did add about another $3.7 million to this,
Right.
because when the evaluation was done, we found a section that was in more need than any of the others. So,
Sure. And I guess when you look at capacity of sewer lines, water lines, whatever, you look at what the priority funding areas are that is going to be providing service to. You have a named town center, a named village center. I'm not so sure that Piney Point should be a town center, and there'll be a lot of pushback on that. But
right.
I just don't think that it will never have the capacity, not sewer capacity necessarily, but it won't have the ability to become a town center. It just won't. And I don't know that other village centers along the way will have the ability to become village centers either. And then there are PFAs. You guys will provide water and sewer to those PFAs. And I know there's not a lot of fudging when it comes to PFAs, even though sometimes in my view, it would be in the best interest of the community, to allow relocation of certain businesses that would be outside of a PFA, but only several hundred yards down the road.
Right.
Makes no common sense at all. And that's not, I know somebody will reach out and say, I'm not giving you a bad time. I'm not giving land use and growth management a bad time.
Right.
But
philosophical
question, yeah, anyway. So, when we see projects here, we always, preliminarily, we get the projects, and we have a public hearing for those. Not so long after that, 2 weeks later, I brought this up last year, we have another public hearing, and it's for a water and sewer category change. Can you explain to me, maybe there's a reason I'm missing. Why is it done that way? I know that's the way it is, but why is it necessary to do that?
Well, we changed the law. You mean to include the capital budget into the water and sewer, comprehensive water and sewer plan? We changed the law 2 years ago, which now automatically, once the capital budget is approved, it automatically generates that revision to the comprehensive water and sewer plan, so you don't have to hold that separate hearing.
Did we not have to have a separate hearing when it came to 7-Elevens? The 7-Eleven on Great Mills Road?
Two separate issues. One is a specific project specific. The other is to roll this capital budget into the plan.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Two different topics, but we did recognize the capital budget having to have two hearings. We thought that was.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah, and so okay, I get two different.
So the law
things.
had to be changed. The law was changed, and
Got
now
that.
once the capital budget is approved, it automatically amends the comprehensive water and sewer plan by reference.
And so it moves
So it moves now.
swimmingly. Okay.
Moves.
Very good.
moves much more smoother than it used to.
Yeah, right. I just didn't see the requirement of the expense and staff time and all the rest of that.
It was one of those changes because there were a lot of other changes in the law that were, not pork belly, that's the wrong term. There were a lot of changes
That's
that
a
were
good
really
term.
significant, and this one was really minor, but it made a lot of sense.
Okay,
So it passed very easily.
okay.
And we got, obviously, concurrence from the county commissioners to do that as well.
One other thing, and I noticed, a lot of times I used to criticize, not really criticize the Navy. I just would make comment if, the Navy wanted to have some input with regard to land use and that sort of thing, that maybe they'd like to come to the table with a checkbook. And I just want to say publicly, I appreciate the fact that the Navy has done that. I mean, they have made those contributions. They have helped with Shannon Farm. And apparently they have an ongoing relationship with the county that has been fairly good with regard to their endeavors, and protecting NAS and the rest. So when it comes to me, I'm not really criticizing anybody, but I am happy that they have come, and it has been so good lately.
Well, for your edification, Planning Commission as well, not just yours, Mr. Evans, the Navy also pays their pro rata share of that big Marley Taylor ENR upgrade
Yeah.
because we treat all of their sewer. So not only are they a customer, but on the capital side, they paid their fair share, and I think their fair share expires in FY 2030. So there's a payment plan to
Yeah,
pay
and so-
Metcom back.
And so now we've gotten that out of the way, so maybe we can find some balance with regard to the economic development part of it, what gets developed there as opposed to what gets developed over here, so that we're sort of on the same page. So maybe we've accomplished that, and I'm happy to that, for that. But maybe we can get to a point where it's not so much I need to know what goes on in the secret world of DNA and of NAS, but with regard to how it affects the county, Lexington Park, and those areas economically, I think we need to do a better job. And again, it's not a critique, it's just an observation, hopefully, a critical way of not duplicating, replicating things that are only a fence away.
Understood?
Yeah, so that's all I have. Thanks.
Any other questions from
I just have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
A couple months ago when you were here and we were talking about,
pull the mic up there?
a couple months ago when you were here and we were talking about the St. Clement Shores expansion,
Yes, ma'am.
you had mentioned that there would have to be EDUs set aside or in reserve in case, because you knew there was going to be a requirement far greater than what we were discussing that night.
That was all, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, we put all that in the resolutions that were approved? All that
Yes.
discussion we had that night has
Right.
been actually codified into a formal resolution.
So when you, my question, the reason I'm bringing that up is when you talk about the 144 sewer EDUs, I believe that's the number you used, does that exclude anything that's reserved for the St. Clements Shores? future?
Absolutely, that's new construction. St. Clement Shores is like an infill development that we're addressing as a standalone community. We're talking about new construction, new EDUs that come through this process here.
Okay,
So it excludes that. It's a good question.
okay, thanks.
Very good question. Thank you.
Any other questions from any other board members?
I only have one for George, and that's a thank you for the heads up to some of the questions that I had about the Forest Run project and the relining of the pipe on Great Mills Road that was doing all the flooding and everything. I'm glad to see you're proactive to help those businesses out down there. Thank you very much, George. The other question was when Merle was talking about the federal government. Federal government, anytime that they have an increase in their properties or anytime they increase their footprint or cause additional development in the county, they participate into funding back to the county. Now, that's the way it used to be, and I don't know, maybe someone could answer that, or whether we still do a joint agreement, because anytime the Navy impacts the county, they have to help pay for the infrastructure. Is that not correct, George, or do you know anything about that?
That'd be more of a county DPW. We do enter agreements on the Metcom side. I'm not sure what the current process is with the county.
Maybe Department of Public Works could answer that.
Hold on one second, Mr. Dietrich's coming up.
Hello, yeah, this is John Dietrich. There's specific grants that are available, and we're working with the base on those, but there's, as far as the only money we receive from the Navy is for work that we're doing on the base or on Webster Field. So, for example, we just got $600 and some odd thousand to do taxiway repair and some other items that we can get done a little more effectively than they can with their contract, their federal contracts. So, and that was the intergovernmental support agreement that we got in place. But as far as anything else, there's we're trying to develop along with the base and economic development a request for I've gone blank on the name of the program, but we are working on that now. I think originally they were thinking of the YMCA, but we've moved on beyond that now. So the Three Notch Trail has been mentioned. There are a couple other items that could help both the readiness of the base, which is mostly about reducing traffic, but we're also looking at items like a crosswalk on 235, Three Notch Road at Great Mills, so that people could actually probably ride a bike over to the restaurants that are there from the base. There are quite a few people on the base that do bike, and it's pretty dangerous to get across the road there. There's really no crosswalk. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to do and trying to get money from the Navy.
All right. For those that remember the base realignment and everything, when we were trying to keep the base here in the county entered into an agreement with the Navy and the federal government that they would pay a certain percentage because of an impact that they were doing to your county. Did we lose that somewhere along the way? I do know that was in existence at the time when we were looking at the Navy base realignment and bringing all the people in from Pennsylvania and bringing all the other bases in here. And anytime the base would do a impact to the county, whether it was roads, schools, infrastructure, they had a contract with us that they paid us X number of dollars. And you're telling me we no longer have that in effect?
No. I'm not familiar with that. George nodded his head negatively too.
1995.
Yeah, it was 25 years. It's probably still not paying on that. I would imagine it was.
I don't remember that, and I was.
You would have known.
And you would
Yeah.
have, yeah. You know, my comment with regard to.
No, it didn't.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe.
It didn't have anything to do with the 25 years. I'm saying that the base, anytime they come into an area and do an impact, they have to give support to the area to upgrade their infrastructure.
No, that was not in the agreement.
If someone could look into that
I will.
and
I'll pull
get
it.
back,
'Cause
I'd like to know where that program went or whether it was just
it was a
disappeared or what happened to it.
We had a tri-county agreement. But I don't remember it.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, it was Calvert, St. Mary's, and
What if it was Brack specific?
Charles.
Yeah, my comments with regard to the base have to do with their contributions protecting their fence line with regard to land acquisition. My other go on to comment, the other comment was with regard to economic development. I'd like to see, and maybe there is, and I'm not aware of it, I'd like to see a better relationship when it comes to replications, duplication of effort, whatever it is, it doesn't matter to me, whether it's restaurants, conference centers, child care, whatever it is. I would really like to see the economic development part of it, there be a more open line of communication. And again, it has nothing to do with the secret aspect or whatever going on in the NAS. It has more to do with that little town center that they have just on the other side of the fence. And I just don't want to see investment made in the community only to find down the line that investment has been made on the base, and it's only the only access is to those people that have access to the base. And I don't want to get in a shooting match over it. It makes perfect sense to me to be able to share information so that we're not duplicating or replicating effort. That's all. So, and I think we've done that. I mean, to some degree. I mean, there have been instances where we have worked. The county has responded extremely well with regard to needs, as the Navy said. We need this, and then we've done a good job. I think we're responding to a lot of those things. And then down the line, we find that sometimes, that those efforts have now been replicated, aboard the base, and then the efforts that we have sort of go away. I guess I'm referring mostly to daycare. That's the one that sticks in my mind more than anything else, because when that happened, when the daycare was constructed, I found out about the daycare reading in the Enterprise. That's when I found out they were building a daycare. And all the other daycares had sprung up trying to address the need for people going into the base. Now, one by one, those daycare facilities went away. And I just don't want to see that loss. I mean, small business, it takes a certain kind of person to open up a small business and put, money on the line, borrow on the line, do those sorts of things. And I think that hopefully we can, and we're probably doing a fine job. I just don't want to see replication. I don't want to see lost business opportunities off the base.
No, Commissioner Evans, you have the same issue with housing, military housing,
Right.
and contractor support.
Sure.
The contractor support is within the gates or outside the gates, and the same thing with the housing.
Right.
We've seen several military housing projects come up outside the gate, but there is still military housing on the inside.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and
You want that synergy is what you need.
And and unfortunately, there, I've had discussions with people that, sort of share that this community has become a them and us community, and I'm hoping that that's not the case. It's either people connected or people not connected, and whether and I'm not going to try to change their belief. I'm not going to get into that discussion with them. And that's part of this open dialogue with regard to Lexington Park. We go through the process of doing a capital improvement, a master plan, and you would hope that down the line you could move forward. I see one building that looks like I don't know how many $1 million that cost, but it sticks out, from the others. It would be nice if there could be more of that. So that's all.
Is there any other questions? Good job, Mr. Erickson. Ms. Hollander, thank you all for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Answering questions. If there's no other questions for George or Christie, can I have a motion? Guess everybody's got that motion.
I got it.
That motion. Go ahead. Yeah,
Would
I
somebody
got two
like,
of them.
want to make it, Pat?
Move that the Planning Commission accept the FY 2022 through 2027 St. Mary's County Metropolitan Commission Capital Improvement Plan and Budget as being consistent with the comprehensive plan, and that the chair be authorized to sign a letter to the commissioners of St. Mary's County confirming these findings and recommending approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Evans. Okay, I'll go down the roll call. Patty Robrack,
Aye.
Joe Van Kirk,
Aye.
Merle Evans,
Aye.
Joe Fazekas,
Aye.
Kim Summers,
Aye.
Joe St. Clair,
Aye.
and I'll also vote aye. Again, thank you, Mr. Erickson. Okay. 1 second to clear this path, and we'll get right into the next one. Uh-oh. Okay, next will be the Wildwood Plan Unit Development Annual Update. Let's see, we have with us on that, I know we had Sean Day was here.
And Jim Gotch.
And Jim Gotch. Okay, let's see, okay, Sean's up there, got him. And, okay, I see Mr. Gotch. Sean, do you want to go ahead and start for us?
Yeah, good evening. Haven't seen quite a few of you for a while, so nice to be joining virtually. Sean Day with Stanley Martin Homes, LLC, the owners of the Wildwood Project. So I will start the evening off by introducing Jim Gotch, of course, with Soltez, who has done all the engineering on the project to date. So happy to have him proceed with the presentation, and then if you guys have any questions, we'll be here for that.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. My video is not working, so you get a blank screen of me tonight, but I'm going to share my computer and show you the display packet that you have. So we were last here, well, let me start. This is Jim Gotch from Soltez at 23140 Moakley Street, Suite 6, Leonardtown. We were last with you for the PUD update in March 11, 2020. And the PUD update is not asking for an approval or a motion of any kind from you guys. This is just an obligation of Wildwood to provide you an update of where we are today. So since the last time, there's been no new developments approved. The last development that received approval was 2016. So since 2016, what we've been doing is building houses on the approved development plans. So I'll give you an update of where we are and the number of houses. I'm switching to my display screen, and hopefully it pops up on yours as well. Okay, so we have 3,792 development rights in the Wildwood development, in the Wildwood PUD. And that has been, I'm looking at just the cover sheet of the packet that was submitted to you. I don't see it popping on the TV yet, so.
It's not recognizing that you're sharing your screen. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So we have 3,792 units that were approved. That's been since 1991, so 30 years. And at date today, you're going to see a few numbers pop up. We have 3,377 units that have been approved through all the different phases and development pods within Wildwood. And so right now that sits at about 415 units below what the allowable density is. And then right now we have 3,096, or as of mid-January, 3,096 units that have been built. That's 696 units below what the allowable density is. And open space that we talk about each time, I'll show you the map here in a second, is based on what was established in the Wildwood PUD. So it doesn't match the same open space criteria that you guys are used to seeing in today's zoning ordinance. It predates the zoning ordinance. So we're going off of what the Wildwood PUD language says for open space. And what we have is a required 444 acres of open space, and 623 acres is provided right now. So we have 180 acres extra of open space. Same thing with developed open space. It's stormwater management areas and some of the areas in between lots. We're required to have 84 acres, and we have 131 acres. So I'm going to switch to the plan real quick and let you see what I'm talking about. The green that shows up in this plan is what's considered open space. There's an orange area that's in between the development area, includes stormwater management, utility easements, that sort of thing. That is the developed open space. We have impervious area is the red, and the public roadways, right-of-ways are the blue. So that's the map that establishes how much open space we have. And that area is all the subdivisions that we can fit in Wildwood are in there already since 2016. We're, again, just building houses in the approved development pods. If you look at the plan, just to the left of the development area, I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around.
Yes, sir.
But we have the Wildwood Farm is to the left of it, where the extension of Lawrence Hayden will cut through Wildwood Farm, and then down a little bit further is where Evergreen Elementary School is. And then Lawrence Hayden will eventually make its way out to Route 4 and come out somewhere near Indian Bridge Road. So that shows up on this plan too. We're here in March just because of the backlog and the getting to you guys. Okay. This page gives you an update of what we've done since the last time we were here. Again, all the site plans are approved. So at the top, you see no new site plans approved. I always keep the status of Maryland Route 235 up there. We had 4 phases of improvements on Maryland 235. 3 of the 4 phases have been constructed, and the only remaining phase is from the Lenny's Bollywood site going north through Merville Dean, and then it tapers back. It will be a 3rd lane, tapering back to 2 lanes north of Merville Dean. And so that's approved. That's bonded by the developer. State Highway is acquiring all the property that's needed for the widening. And then once State Highway owns all the property, then the construction will start. Since last January, we have had 48 building permits issued in Wildwood, and you can see the different subdivisions that they came in: Leland Park, Magnolia Park, and Orchid Park. We have had 59 certification of occupancies. Again, the same developments, plus there were 8 in Evergreen Park as well to finish out that development. This table is very small, hard to read, but it is a list of every community within the Wildwood development. And what it has is it's in the third column, it has how many development rights or units have been approved, and that's where we have the 3,377. The lots recorded to date some of the condominiums record parcels by one building. So there might be 24 or 32 units in one recorded parcel. So that's not a good number to look at. It's the building permits are the 3,120, and the certification of occupancy is 3,096. So those are the same numbers that you'll see, 3,377 approved, and of those 3,300, we've got 3,096 constructed. Okay, this page, again, shows you the same thing. It's got 3,792 allowable, 3,096 built, with a remaining density of 696 units. The next page is just a further breakdown on what they are: single-family detached or single-family attached, townhouses, duplexes, and then condominiums and apartments. So again, it adds up to the same thing. Okay, this table is the first three charts are historical data from when the PUD was established, then the amendment in 1989, and the amendment in 1991. So the numbers in the top three tables do not change. What does change is the bottom table, and that's based on the count of the units that are constructed each year. So again, this table shows that 3,792 are allowable. We've built 3,096 and have 696 units that could be built. Okay, here's where we get into the open space requirements. We have at the top, that is the open space that would be required for the full build out, 3,792 units, even though there's not that many approved. It would be 444 acres of open space and 84 acres of developed open space. So what we've provided to date is 623 acres of open space and 131 acres of developed open space. So again, we exceed the area, and we calculate the open space and the developed open space when the parcels are approved. That's when the numbers in these tables change. So the open space and developed open space that is provided will never change. We're always going to exceed what's required for the full build out of the site. The only thing that changes is what's required based on the number of units that are built each year. And that number always stays below the 3,792. Okay, the last page shows the summation of the open space. I'm gonna zoom in just a hair. So it shows you what is needed at build out at the 3,792, and then how much is provided, the 623, and what the excess is below that. And the other two charts are just a breakdown of what's approved in the Wildwood area itself, and then what's approved in the Wildwood Village, because the The village has rights to all the open space in Wildwood, but the Wildwood community doesn't necessarily have rights to the open space in the village. So we keep track of those separate. And then just same thing. We make sure that we exceed what's required. So if you look at just the Wildwood Development Community, we need 396 acres and we have 593. So nearly 200 acres more. And the same thing with the developed open space, we need 75, we have 103. And then all those numbers from that chart show up on the other exhibit that you guys have seen. Those are the charts from the page we were just looking at. So that's just our accounting of where we are. We're still exceed the open space, and we're about 180 units short of what's been approved. And when those units are built, it looks like we're going to be about 415 units short of what the ultimate development capacity could have been. So that's it for me. But I'll answer any questions you have.
Okay. And
Hi, this is Kim Summers. I have a question. Is the ultimate plan to build out Wildwood completely?
Well, all the developments that fit inside of Wildwood have been approved since 2016. So we're just building the houses in those that are approved. So what we've got is we've got an approved 3,377 units, but there's 3,792 that are allowable. So again, we're about 415 short of what would be allowable. Basically, what would happen is, as the development went in, the developer used single-family houses for most of this development, which they were not able to achieve the full build-out.
Thanks. The reason I ask is because I was the first principal of Evergreen Elementary School, and after the first year, we had to bring in trailers. So I was just curious, what the status is and how that is communicated with the school system so that, we are in line with, what the school can handle and what the Wildwood community is building.
Look for about 180 more units.
Thank you.
any other questions from any board members? Mr. Evans?
As I remember, I remember, going through the process with Evergreen. As I recall, arithmetic back in the day was that Evergreen was never going to be able to take care of the volume of people that were going to live in Wildwood. And that was something that really wasn't said out loud too awfully much. There was always going to be a time where a certain number of children were going to probably have to be bused from Wildwood to Hollywood. And I can remember standing in the auditorium that day of the ribbon cutting, asking the person next to me who was going to actually stand up and say that. And nobody was willing to stand up and say that. But I think the expectation of Wildwood was that the capacity of Evergreen was going to accommodate the build out, and that simply wasn't the case. And I think that, and I don't think that I don't think Kim's still here, but I don't think that the county has ever counted relocatables as in their capacity, their actual capacity. Charles does, but unfortunately, because of the way the funding goes, if you don't have a full school funding is not available. Now you could forward fund it, but that's at the peril down the line of the next school that comes along not getting funding, and then they would simply say you can have either the amount that you was forward funded, or you can have the new school, which is why the county hasn't been interested in forward funding schools, I think, probably.
We had that discussion when the Board of Education came here with their
Right.
capital improvement.
Please use a microphone.
Yeah, and I don't know if the numbers are the same, but back in those days when we talked about it, I think that Charles County was using relocatables to address 5,000 students in Charles. That may have changed. I don't know what it is now. But I don't think it was ever meant to be, but relocatables were never meant to be permanent with regard to capacity for kids. And I think that credit where credit's due. I think that, having been around a while, I think that the board, Kim, and her predecessor, I think did a great job with regard to, getting the funding they needed when they needed it. And it wasn't perfect science, but I think that they've done reasonably well.
I do too.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Sean or Mr. Gotch, whoever would answer the question. You heard earlier this evening about state funding being, you're not going to get it for the entryway off of Route 4 to the Parkway. Is that going to hold you all up? Are you worried about getting people in and out of the project because of any holdup that comes with that?
This is Jim. That was a county and state project, not part of the developer projects.
No, I'm
so
just,
what we've
I'm
been
just
doing
asking
is
you if you're worried about it. I mean, if that doesn't go and you're still building, are y'all going to start getting worried about getting people in and out? I mean, you have to sell your houses, and you have to be able to tell people there's no problem with entry in and out of their community. Does that concern you?
No, because the last entrance that we opened up was to get the project out to Lawrence Hayden. So we've got a way to get the project out the back. We've got both coming in Airport Road and coming in Wildwood Boulevard, plus what's out Route 4. So Route 4 serves a lot of Neighborhood 1 and what's over between there and Wildwood Boulevard, right at the shopping center. And so that's pretty much all developed except for houses right at the corner of Wildwood Boulevard and Wildwood Parkway, which would probably most likely go out to 235.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because it's my understanding that you're going to start with some sort of building, I guess townhouses or condos right there at the corner of Wildwood Parkway and Wildwood Boulevard. That intersection there, I'll call, is probably one of your hottest intersections in Wildwood. Are y'all going to be ready, or are you working with the county as far as how you're going to get people in and out of that section?
Correct. That's all been approved.
Well, I know it's been approved, but
plan.
it's still a hot intersection, and it's going to get
Yes.
hotter with I'll say the closeness of these. I'm looking at the map right now on my computer, and that little development is tucked right in the corner of that. And a lot of people come in Wildwood Boulevard, including myself, when I go through, and I know right there at that intersection, that's probably the most. I'll say you get more of a backup at that intersection, seeing as how there's no light or anything in there. It's I won't say a bottleneck, but it has a backup most of the busy times of day at that, and then
there's additional pavement added there at the intersection coming in Wildwood Boulevard to turn right onto Wildwood Parkway. And then there's a dedicated deceleration and acceleration lane into the project.
Okay. Well, my point being is it's going to be a lot more traffic, and with people, the traffic where I'm looking at that entrance right now, the one off of the boulevard, it backs up to there a lot of times, and that concerns me. And then hearing that the other intersection is not going to be worked on, there's always a backup there. There's always cars that don't make it through on the first, I'll say, queue of a light, both on Route 4 and coming out of the Parkway. It's going to start getting tight on y'all. I just want to, one, you be able to sell your product to customers without having them come back on you later about traffic and the unavailability of them to be able to get in and out in a timely fashion. And that whenever I hear something's not getting funded and not moving forward, and you're moving forward, I know you only have 180 more units, but y'all still have a lot that you could build. That concerns me, the ingress and getting out on Lawrence Hayden Road. When you come out the back, I mean, it's still with the new housing development that's coming in right there where the Lawrence Hayden comes onto, I guess that's St. John's Road or Sandy Bottom Road. There's going to be a lot of traffic, I'll say, a lot of added traffic back there. And Lawrence Hayden isn't exactly your easiest road to get in and out of since they've had to make the, I'll say, the loop around the end of the runway. It's just broke up a little bit more than what it used to be. Just concerned about roads and your product. You know, you have to be able to sell it. So, just a concern. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Gotch. Thank you, Sean. Sean, don't talk so much next time. Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay.
It's nice to hear from you too. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Jim. Okay. Is there any other new business from the board? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we.
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right, there you go. Pop up there now. How about a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Roebuck. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
I've never had anybody vote no, so that's why I don't go down the checklist. So, okay.
It won't matter.
Okay.
Eyes will have it.
Ayes have it. Okay. Thank you. We're adjourned at this time.